You can e-file, which is the recommended way to do all this. Or I'm not even sure if you can still paper file. But if you paper file at the 18-month deadline, I see a lot of claims that run into problems. You've got to make sure that everything's complete in prescribed form. And more importantly, that you can prove that you've mailed it all in. Because the CRA will say, well, we're missing Schedule 31. How do you prove you mailed in Schedule 31? And they'll tell you, no, when it comes in, we scan every document, every page, everything. It wasn't there. It has pretty good evidence that they don't have it. However, there was a recent case that we went through where they argued it wasn't there, and the taxpayer won because the judge believed them that it was included. So there you go. Okay. Okay. As we say, the CRA can do a technical review, a financial review. Most claims are done via that way. Probably a third have site visits every year. Okay. Goes to the taxation center, gets downscreened, goes to the district office. They decide if they're going to do tech or financial review, send the guys out, or assess is filed. All right. This is what they call an RFI, or request for information, that have become prevalent in current years. They'll ask for every activity claimed, details of activities for each SR&ED project, including number of hours claimed for each individual person or contractor per month. Right? So they're saying, where's your timesheets? Okay. Contemporaneous information that you feel best demonstrates the work meets the definition of SR&ED. Contemporaneous evidence, recording your due diligence activities, shows available technology could not overcome the problem. Okay? And the plan you devised. So they're asking for this specifically as a new thing. So this started around 2012. And they've really been pretty strict on it. If you can't keep all that. They say evidence that you've preserved the new technical knowledge. So they'll ask you, what's your conclusion? And if you don't have a conclusion, you've got nothing. You haven't preserved any technical knowledge. You don't have a technological advance, is what they're saying. So again, they're using these requests for information in there. They also say time records support the time spent by employee in SR&ED and non-SR&ED activities. So they don't like a SR&ED only timesheet. They like a full timesheet that shows what I did for the full week and how I've allocated the SR&ED versus non-SR&ED. So again, all the little tweaks that people tend to do to get around it can cause you problems. Okay? Some of the services to taxpayers, we talked about pre-claim process review, account executive. They have sector specialists. They got the manuals. If you're a first-time claimant, you can actually ask them to come and talk to you first, or they have the first-time claimant sessions where they're going to come and talk to you anyways, and they're public information seminars. Since 2014, if you prepare a return for someone on the T661 form or Schedule 32, you have to put what your fee is. Okay? I actually think this is a good thing because a guy named Barry Wiley wrote in the Globe and Mail that billions of dollars were going to claim preparers, that the average, that they took the total credits and they said the average claim was 35% goes to a consultant, which is ridiculous. I mean, so he was saying $2 billion, and right after that, the Big Four released the information that their total fees, so Deloitte's, KPMG, Ernst & Young, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, their total fees for SR&ED amongst them for that year was $110 million. And they represent most of the big guys, so I'm saying that the idea is that the SR&ED fees are in the billions of dollars is ridiculous. But it was something that was published in the Globe and Mail as news. So the average person, they don't know what's truth and lies often. And I think this is a good way for CRA to actually collect information to say, what are preparer fees as a percentage of the total? And is it really less than $2 billion as proposed? Okay, and lastly, dispute resolution. So what happens if we get in a fight? We disagree. CRA says, well, the first thing is you can negotiate with the CRA reviewer. Often if they're going to propose a change, they'll give you something called a 30-day letter is what we inform. Here's our proposed changes. You got 30 days to respond back. This is usually the best pace. Try to work with whatever you can, do what you can, make a deal with those guys at that point. If you just can't make a deal, the person's not being reasonable, you can request a second administrative review, which should have the manager or assistant director or someone come and just basically do the review again and make sure it's following all the policies that it should be. Again, each district office is at the discretion of the assistant director, whether they want to do it in their office period or on a case-by-case basis. So it's not necessarily a right to it. You do, however, whether you do the second amendment review or not, have the right, once you receive the assessment, to file an objection. Okay, so you've got 90 days to file an objection. I have objections that have been sitting with CRA now for almost 3 years. Yeah, so if you file an objection, what happens is it sits there. nothing really happens, and your client loses interest and stops claiming. So even if you win, which I hear a lot of those are actually coming through and winning, your claim still probably lasts a year or two, so who really won at the end of the day? Okay? Now, within the objection, if objection really just doesn't do anything because it goes back to the CRA, and basically they've got a culture where they don't want to change the opinion of the guy before them because that's the guy who sits next to them. That's my experience and that's my personal feeling on it, right? So this will typically get you nowhere, but you can wait 90 days and then you can appeal to the Tax Court of Canada. At the Tax Court of Canada, there's actually two different levels. There's what we call the informal appeal and the formal appeal process, right? And usually they go pretty fast up until the point you call discovery, right? And then things grind to a halt for 2 or 3 years. The informal appeal process is good depending how large my claim is. The informal appeal process allows me to limit my claim to $25,000 federally per taxation year. So it works out to around, if you factor in the tariff, around $40,000 a year. If my credits are much over that, and that's why I'm starting to look at what they call the general procedure. The informal appeal, I believe there's a $100 application fee, but you don't need to hire a lawyer. So generally, if it's a financial tax issue, I can represent my client. Or if it's a technical issue, I can help kind of play the lawyer's role, but bring my client in to represent what the science is. So that's an effective way, and it actually only takes 8 to 9 months. From the time we file it, right now the waiting list is 8 to 9 months for informal appeal. So I've done that on some clients, and I've recommended it to other consultants. And some of the cases we talked about are the informal appeal process. The other is the general appeal, where now you need to hire a counsel and you need to go in, and you can go for the full amount, but it tends to take a little longer. As I've mentioned, that I really thought the appeal process was the way to go, that it was going to get us good decisions. But in reality, if you've got a very strong case, what's happening is the CRA is just tending to settle with you right as you're going up to the gates of the courthouse. And your client's going to be happy, but ultimately it's not helping the system at all. So I'm not sure if the tax court process is effective on keeping things in track or not, as I thought a couple of years ago. Okay, so this is a brief overview of your different options.